Dear brothers and sisters, you may have noticed that I've taken a fair bit of interest in a first century document called the Didache. And this is a document that served as a very, very early form of catechesis. It's fairly neatly divided up into various sections that became a model for those who were being introduced to Christianity, those who were being taught about Christianity with the intent of then being baptized. It neatly divides into three sections, and the order of that is very important for us, is very instructive for us. The first is that is in the 16 chapters of the Didache, the first 6 are devoted to ethics, how it is that we should behave. The second section, a few chapters, is devoted to services. These were not public events. They were not even open to the public events like we're used to today, but were services that were kept for the community and for inside the community, which makes sense given what we know about persecutions of Christians in the first century. And the last section we have as how a community should function, how we should be in a community, how that community should operate as best as it can, before closing with a chapter that's remarkably like Revelations. This order is very, very significant, and it's this order that I'm going to be talking about. Catechesis by this time, the instruction for baptism by this time, was specifically given to those who had already been evangelized, those who had already accepted Jesus is the Christ and the Christ is risen. And so what is the first thing that they said to people who had just accepted this basic line of theology, and basic in the sense of foundational line of theology? The first thing was not, let's get you talking about the Trinity. The first thing was not even, we're going to baptism, so let's talk a bit about baptism. The first thing that they talked about is, how should you behave? How does accepting that this man from Nazareth is the Messiah and is the Son of God, how does that impact on your daily life? How does that impact on what you should and should not be doing? This is the first thing that the leaders of this community thought was important, thought was vital. To be acting in the right way, to be behaving in the right way. Only with this correct behavior could a person then move to baptism. Only with this correct behavior could a person move to the Eucharist, this liturgy service that we're celebrating now. Only when they've gone past those chapters could we move on. Could we move on to greater and better things? Could we move, as St. Paul says, from milk to meat? Could we move to what is easy, to what is more sustaining? Could we grow in the faith? And this is instructive for us. Having accepted, as most of us here, at least most of us here have, having accepted that Jesus of Nazareth is the Messiah and is the Son of God, and that therefore we can be saved, which is an encapsulation of the gospel, how does this affect our daily life? And I pray that it affects it for the better, for everything positive, for everything that leads towards holiness. And this leading towards holiness is something that you can read about in the Didache, but it's predominantly things that we already know. And when we fall short of that, because we know, we've learned through experience that falling short is something that is something that happens, this is why we have confession. And so when we fall short of those early chapters, when we fall short of that first thing that we need to put into practice, we have confession. And we must run to confession, not fear it. That time has passed. not feel ashamed from it. That time is well and truly past. What we do instead is we run to it as a medicine, as something that heals us and brings us back, so that from there we can understand our services, so that from there the sacraments we take within ourselves we allow God to work within us, so that from there we live in community, in that common unity, one with another, that will bring us to heaven, if only we let it. Amen.